McDonald's is massive, and we know you've been there dozens of times. But what don't you know about McDonald's? It probably doesn't surprise you that a company this big has a ton of weird stories they try to keep quiet. So this is the untold truth of McDonald's. While customers stateside might not have heard about it, McDonald's Japan had some major issues in 2014 and 2015. Issues so big and so gross that Mother Jones reported they led to a 10% sales decline. It started in July 2014, when McDonald's stepped in to take some serious action against one of their Shanghai-based chicken suppliers. Rumor had it that the factory was mixing expired product in with the fresh stuff, then shipping it to McDonald's, Starbucks, and Burger King in Japan and China. And that's just gross. Just a month later, a customer in Osaka found a piece of a human tooth in their fries. And it doesn't need to be said just how big a deal that was.
This is definitely bad!
Then in early 2015, there were several reports of customers finding pieces of plastic and vinyl in their chicken McNuggets, leading the recall of 1 million of the bite-sized chicken chunks. McDonald's supplier Cargill investigated and came to the conclusion that the contamination didn't happen in their factory. So where did it come from? We may never know, but it was there. If you have fond memories of opening your Happy Meal to see what toy you got, you're certainly not alone. Happy Meals made their debut in 1979, and they've been a popular staple ever since. So popular, in fact, that The Motley Fool says that in 2004, they typically accounted for about 20% of sales, and that made McDonald's the largest toy distributor in the world. In 2014, The Atlantic reported that because McDonald's UK ran a promotion that offered codes for ebooks instead of toys, it made them, temporarily at least, the largest book distributor in the UK. McDonald's is huge, and they're everywhere, but here's the really surprising thing. They're historically not the largest fast food chain in the world, not by a long shot. First, a bit of a disclaimer. It's hard to give exact numbers because so many locations are opening and closing all the time. So let's talk about 2017. According to CNBC, McDonald's was only the second largest chain in the world, as far as physical locations go. While they had 37,241 restaurants, Subway was the clear winner with their 43,912 locations. Starbucks was a surprisingly distant third, trailing with their 27,339 stores. But that's a bit deceptive. When it comes to sales growth, Starbucks and McDonald's were miles ahead.
What? McDonald's restaurant. I never heard of it either, but they have over 2,000 locations in this state alone.
Must have sprung up overnight.
And now let's talk about 2018 and stores in the US only. According to Business Insider, Subway was still at the top of the pile with around 25,800 domestic locations. But Starbucks had recently passed McDonald's, opening 14,300 stores in comparison to McDonald's roughly 14,000 US restaurants. Go figure! At a glance, McDonald's makes and sells food, so that must be how they make their money, right? Not quite, says Quartz.
McMansion, 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 McDonald's.
They found that a large percentage of their profits comes not from Big Macs and fries, but from real estate. Part of their franchising strategies involves buying the land the restaurant will be on, then leasing the plot to the franchisee, and about 85% of McDonald's locations are run by franchisees. More than that, they often lease the properties at massive markups that mean even though the average McDonald's makes around $2.7 million a year, the average take-home pay for a franchise owner is just $154,000 a year. Around 22% of gross profits go into rent, and the numbers are staggering. As of 2016, McDonald's held about $30 billion worth of real estate, and that netted them an annual profit of $4.5 billion. Talk about a brilliant business plan.
Land. That's where the money is.
If you've ever thought running a McDonald's franchise might be for you, here are some pretty shocking behind-the-scenes numbers that might make you think twice. Let's start with the fact that Business Insider reported McDonald's requires each one of their new franchisees to have $750,000 in liquid assets available before they'll even consider them. Startup costs can range anywhere from $958,000 and $2.2 million and include everything from construction to kitchen equipment and signage. Franchisees are responsible for paying 40% of that with non-borrowed cash, though they do allow you to borrow the rest.
Help me, I'm poor.
No, listen.
Then, franchisees must pay a $45,000 franchisee fee, as well as 4% of gross sales every month, along with rent. They're also responsible for any upgrades that need to be done to the restaurant to keep it in line with other McDonald's locations. And some of those fees are pretty shocking. A Create Your Taste kiosk will set you back $125,000. A McCafe espresso machine is a whopping $13,000, and upgrades to the interior can run a bill as high as $600,000. And if they decide the whole restaurant needs a remodel, you're looking at as much as $2 million. Still interested? Well, it's time to pay up.
Where's the money, Lebowski? You want that money, Lebowski?
If you're of a certain age, you might remember McDonald's Mac Tonight campaign. It's the one with the moon wearing super cool sunglasses and singing about how McD's was for dinner, not just lunch. But here's the weird thing. The song they picked to parody was about a criminal and murderer. The song was Mac the Knife, made famous by 1950s star Bobby Darin. It's catchy, sure, but it's also a song based on a German song from the Threepenny Opera. That was originally a pretty graphic, incredibly violent tale, while McDonald's Moon Man sung lyrics like, "When the clock strikes 6:30, babe, time to head for golden lights." Darin had sung lyrics like, "You know when that shark bites with his teeth, babe, scarlet billows start to spread." There are also entire verses about someone being drowned at the bottom of a river with a pair of cement shoes, and the ladies of the night lining up for Mac. Yeah, that's about as far from slinging burgers as you can get. The campaign disappeared abruptly, and that's largely because Darin's only son sued McDonald's for $10 million. There are a ton of McDonald's restaurants worldwide. Surprisingly, there are a number of cities and countries that don't have a single location. When the US military closed its base in Bermuda in 1995, McDonald's closed too, and they haven't reopened. Because of the Prohibited Restaurants Act 1977, Iran kicked them out in 1979, and instead they're home to a chain called McDonald's. Macedonia and McDonald's had a falling out as well, and McDonald's chose to cut and run out of Bolivia after nationwide disdain for the chain resulted in poor sales. Barbados, which traditionally doesn't eat much beef, was another failed experiment, with their McDonald's lasting just 1 year. But most fascinating of all is Iceland, who said goodbye to McDonald's in 2008. And of course, there are none in North Korea. If everyone did just one thing to help the environment, it would make a huge difference. In 2018, one-time use plastics, particularly drinking straws, made headlines as people started to realize just how bad for the environment they are.
Americans use 500 million plastic straws a day.
According to Ocean Collective, they're one of the items most commonly found during beach cleanups, and the problem with getting rid of them is that the alternatives are much more expensive. But McDonald's has still vowed to ditch straws, starting with their restaurants in the UK and Ireland. According to The Independent, all 1,361 locations will have their plastic straws replaced by paper ones, at a much greater cost to the Golden Arches. But both government officials and customers have lauded the decision, and not a moment too soon. UN estimates suggest that unless something major is done, by 2050, the seas will contain more plastics than fish. So, thanks, McDonald's! Today, McDonald's Golden Arches are among the most recognizable logos in the world, but they came about by accident. According to BBC, the McDonald brothers met with LA-based architect Stanley Clark Meston to come up with a distinctive design for their buildings. On top of the flat roof building they had drawn up, Richard McDonald added 2 giant half circles that were meant to catch the eye of potential customers. Meston turned those into the M we all know and love today, and the very first ones were installed along with the very first franchise restaurant that opened in Phoenix, Arizona in 1953. It went through a few more tweaks, and here's the weird thing. They're not all golden. When McDonald's opened their location in Sedona, Arizona, they had to conform to local laws that serve to protect the look and feel of the landscape, so their M is turquoise. There are similar laws in place in other areas, which means the M in Monterey, California is black. Ever wondered if you could go through the drive-thru and satisfy your craving for a McFlurry while you're, say, riding on a horse? If so, don't worry, you're not alone. There's a surprising number of people who have not only tried, but who have made headlines for riding on horseback through the McDonald's drive-thru. In March 2018, BBC reported that a man in England trotted up to the drive-thru and attempted to order a McCafe latte, before being told the drive-thru actually wasn't for horses. He wound up going inside to get his coffee. Just a few months later, it happened again in Worcestershire. The customer wanted a Big Mac, and as for the horse, his name was Oliver, according to Express. They weren't served by McDonald's, but they did get a snack from the nearby cafe. South Carolina's Isaiah Rones had better luck when WLTX caught him on camera going through the drive-thru for some sweet tea and apple pies. And yes, his trusty horse was the recipient of an apple-flavored treat too. But a McDonald's in New Zealand wasn't having any of it when they turned away 2 women on horseback. According to Wide Open Pets, the chain cited health and safety reasons for turning the riders away. Not everyone loves McDonald's, especially animal rights activists. The chain's official stance says, "We believe treating animals with care and respect is an integral part of our commitment to serving McDonald's customers safe food." That's admirable, but animal rights groups say they're not following through on their commitments. In 2018, Animal Equality partnered with other organizations to demonstrate at McDonald's locations and to broadcast iAnimal, a VR experience that gave people a look inside factory farms to see the suffering of the chickens that ultimately made it onto McDonald's menu. They called out McDonald's not just for their policies, but for not being the leader in animal welfare they thought they should be.
You betrayed me. I can't trust you no more.
According to The Independent, one of the core issues was unnatural breeding practices that resulted in chickens that got too big too quickly and ended up suffering all kinds of health issues and heart failure. All this came on the heels of McDonald's announcement that they were going to be raising the standard of care for their chickens by the year 2024. But is that good enough? check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more MASH videos about your favorite stuff are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.